Rights Watch has released its World Report for 2014. The report summarizes key human rights issues in more than 90 countries and territories worldwide, drawing on events from the end of 2012 through November 2013. Now, joining us in studio to unpack the report is Tiseke Kasambala, Southern Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. Tiseke, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to PM News.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Tiseke, simplify for us the need for such surveys and what does it mean to an average citizen?
Well, what we often do is, as you know, we're a human rights organization. And one of the things we do is document human rights violations across about 90 countries that we actually work in. And so this World Report is actually a summary of all the work we've been doing over the previous year on specific countries. And so the World Report itself features 90 countries, including 18 countries here in Africa. And so this report can be used by policymakers and government officials. And quite often, I think it's almost like a report card about how well they've done over the past year.
Absolutely,
but also the average citizen can look at it. If they're interested in political developments, human rights developments, they can use that as well for their own information.
All right. And then with that said, what do you base the survey on?
Well, it's based, as I said, on our work. We have researchers that work on the ground and document human rights situations across the world. For example, the kind of conflict that we've seen in the south of Sudan,
yes.
We had researchers going into the south of Sudan and documenting what was taking place there. So then we summarize some of our work, and it's on civil and political rights and economic, social and cultural rights as well. And one of the things we've done here in South Africa is highlight some of the issues and human rights challenges that South Africa has faced over the past year.
Absolutely. Now, Tiseke, let's talk about the finding now in a nutshell. What did they find to be the biggest human rights worrying issue, especially with the recent wave of fierce violence in the African continent?
Yes, I think some of the major issues that we found were the ongoing conflict in Syria, which has led to the deaths of thousands of people and the displacement of hundreds of thousands more. But also the conflicts, as I said, in the south of Sudan. This conflict began in December last year, and already we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people having been displaced from their homes, and also the killings of thousands more. And then we also documented the conflict that took place in the Central African Republic, where there was serious crimes that were committed by the various forces there, the Seleka group, under the then President Michael Jotodia. We saw rape of women and girls, conscription of children, pillaging and burning of villages, and up to 100,000 people now remain displaced.
And this is now across the world, and not just central to the African continent, to say.
Indeed. We don't just cover the African continent. We also covered issues of drone attacks by the US government in Pakistan and Afghanistan. We highlighted our concerns with national surveillance by the US government in other parts of the world. We covered situations in Russia, in India. So we cover pretty much as we possibly can, given our resources. So it's 90 countries across the world.
That is amazing. Now, Tiseke, once the report is filed, what then happens to that information? Very nice of you to tell us this is what happens in these countries. But then what really happens with that information? Do you ever find that there's been solutions that have come out of your surveys?
Yes, indeed. I mean, some of the information that we gather is used when there's prosecutions of international crimes. So some of our information, for example, when you documented the genocide in Rwanda over 20 years ago, the information that we covered there was used to prosecute some of the people who had committed the serious crimes and the violence in Rwanda at the time. So the information we have can be used for future purposes, and that's why we document it.
Thank you so much, Tiseke, for talking to us. That was Tiseke Kasambala, Southern Africa Director at Human Rights Watch, talking to us about the release, of course, of the World Report, which was released today.